What's up, y'all? Welcome to Numbers Don't Lie, the show that takes a data-driven look at football. I'm Nico Cantor, ready to walk you through all the storylines today, including the Ballon d'Or. Yes, the votes are in, and Ousmane Dembélé is the best footballer in the world. We have a lot to break down, but it's not just me. Also on the show, my brother, JayDee Dyer. JayDee, talk me through this one.
I'm going to grab that assist right there and I'm going to throw it to this guy because this is one of the most clinical strikers in world football. Yes, Kylian Mbappé has the confidence, the smile and the output to match what has been an incredible start to this season. But more importantly, can we actually decide whether or not he is actually the best footballer? Or are we going to dive into those numbers right there? But Nico, I know you got a whole bunch of other conversations we're going to have today.
Definitely. We need to talk about football in England and perhaps some performances away from Manchester United. Antony at Betis, Scott McTominay at Napoli, and Marcus Rashford trying to start a revival at Barcelona. But these are not the only English teams that we're talking about. We also need to break down what went on in that Arsenal against Manchester City game. It gave us a lot to talk about in the title race, but this is where we begin. The Ballon d'Or, this was the massive talking point today. It's Ousmane Dembélé, the Frenchman of PSG, that had a clean sweep. He is, are you crowning me?
Come on, man, you know what time it is.
I'll take Dembélé's crown. He is the best player in the world, JayDee.
Come on, man, Ousmane Dembélé has been sensational. Sensational from the second that he's inherited this Luis Enrique system and understands exactly who he needs to be in this system. I mean, the games in these two seasons speak for themselves. The productivity, the goals, the injuries, which the stats don't show as well, the unavailability. But the second he could get some consistency in his legs, a second he had understanding in terms of what the fluidity and what is required in this system. Look at the output, Nico. 60 matches. First of all, availability is their best ability. Then the goals and the assists to match, the Sofascore rating, all speak for themselves.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even just from the calendar year onwards, when PSG really picked up, that's when we saw the best version of Ousmane Dembélé. And I think from a country mouth, we saw when you win Champions League, when you win Ligue 1, when you win Coupe de France, when you show that you're the best team in the world, well, the best player on the best team will probably win the Ballon d'Or. So pretty incredible. But before we move on, let's see what our friends at Sofascore have to say about this, because they have their own Ballon d'Or list, and this is different. The games are weighted differently.
They are.
It's not like a Champions League game is the same as a friendly game in the third division of Argentina, if you will.
Okay, so you know what? I mean, the question marks over the order will live for themselves. We'll leave you in the comments to decide those. But in terms of the actual players that's on here, each one of these players have had fantastic 12 months. Incredible trajectory. I've got so much question marks as to why he's so low. I've got so much question marks as to why he's so low. Let's not even open up the question marks here. But Nico, when you look at the data and you look at the analysis, are you upset and looking at the 6 to 10 for the Ballon d'Or nominees according to Sofascore?
No, not necessarily, because remember, this is the average Sofascore rating in all competitions throughout the 2024-25 year. It's hundreds of data points compiled to give you this rating. And again, a Champions League final is rated differently. Is rated the same, to match day 3 in any of your leagues. Ousmane Dembélé, the Ballon d'Or winner, is number 5. He didn't play that many matches, remember. It's from January 2025 onward where he really killed it. So 7.70, there's a couple of individual performances that were more consistent.
Okay, I can understand that. And one person who can definitely say they embodied consistency this year was this guy, Mikel, who's moved, I don't know, to Germany and just taken it. As cool as his post-match interviews are, he's chilled, he's calm, but more importantly, look at the production and look at the way he's impacting the game on both sides, both goals and assists. I mean, anybody can say it's easy to assist Harry Kane. It isn't. Trust me, you have to have the relationship, you have to have the connection, and even Harry Kane has given him his plaudits. But even number 4 though, Nico, that's kind of high on this list.
Yeah, I think it is, especially when you consider Mohamed Salah. But again, Liverpool won that Premier League so early on that perhaps those performances tapered off towards the end when they knew it was so wrapped up. Let's go to number 3, Lamine Yamal.
The man of all mans?
All right.
The one that makes us all recognize what it's like to be a teenager again. He makes me fall in love with football.
I'm looking at this successful dribbles, helping him have that 7.70 Sofascore rating. He made us fall in love because he was willing to take people on. He had the most successful dribbles in Europe, right? He was going after you constantly. And he did it with a lot of success, and that's what gets us excited. So for the first time in Barcelona, there was a guy that really got us off of our seat because he was giving you that Messi-esque coming at you.
The chills, and obviously, if you talk about Lamine Yamal, you have to talk about his running mate. According to the Sofascore, this is who would have finished second. Rafinha. Look, the Brazilian magic is on full force with this one because the goals, the production, I just loved everything. Look, it's equaled in terms of Cristiano Ronaldo's record, over a single season for goal involvement. That tells me everything you need to know. And I just feel like when you look at the overall balance of where Rafinha is in his career, I think he's probably hitting his peak right now.
Yeah,
he's smiling, he's thinking to himself, I am the man, and I can enjoy this under the Hansi Flick system.
Yeah, he's the man. He was so good.
It was sensational.
And you know who should have won the Ballon d'Or according to Sofascore and their performances?
Do it. Do it.
Can you believe it?
Do it.
It's Victor Gyökeres.
Nico, do it.
You see him in an Arsenal kit over there, but it's really because of his performances with Sporting Clube de Portugal. He was so good. I mean, highest Portuguese league tally since Mario Jardel in the 2001-2002 season, and it wasn't an anomaly that season. The season before that, he was actually still pretty good. 63 goals in 55 matches, 17 assists. Obviously, you need to consider that Sporting was playing much easier games week in, week out than Mohamed Salah, even than like a Florian Wirtz, for example, which made 6th place on this list. But still, man, he was consistent. Liga Portugal, in Champions League, in the 2 cups, I mean, even if you will, in the Allianz Cup as well, in Nations League with his country. This is a guy that scores a lot of goals, and because certain games are not weighted more than others, and in the voting process for the Ballon d'Or, they are. That's why Sofascore has Victor Gyökeres as their Ballon d'Or winner for last season, if you will.
If it was only rated on scoring and goal scores, this guy would be head and shoulders above. But I tell you who would enter that conversation as well, who we're going to discuss after the break. Arguably the best number 9 in world football, and you've already seen him and what he's done this year in a Real Madrid shirt. Kylian Mbappé, it's time we dive into your numbers.
Hey, welcome back to Numbers Don't Lie. All right, our WTF stat of the week, and it belongs in Spain. Deportivo Alavés. Yeah, Deportivo Alavés, what they doing in Spain?
Where have you grabbed this one from?
Every single one of their goals this season has been a set-piece play. 100% of the goals that they have scored. Although they only have 2 wins, never mind that. They have as many set-piece goals already than what Monza did the entirety of last season in Serie A. Sorry, Monza catching strays.
Why are you catching strays? Why is Monza catching strays? It's early in the week.
A point of comparison.
I won't help you online when the Monza fans come for you. But since you want to stay in Spain, Nico, let's focus on, I would say, the most complete forward in world football right now. This man, full of confidence, smiling, celebrating, of course, making those Madrid fans remember why they signed Kylian Mbappé, because the stats speak for themselves. We always said season 1 was going to be one where he eased himself in. Season 2 was where you was going to see the best version of him. And look, the big chances point in terms of points created, the big chance conversions as well, the goal involvements, which we'll get to in a second, but most importantly, the Sofascore rating. Shout out to the boys. 8.12. That tells me exactly who he is and exactly why he's full of confidence right now. But Nico, these goal involvements, I want to know where it weighs up historically against some other Madrid greats.
All right, it is a small sample size of just 6 games, but he's involved either a goal, an assist, in 66.7 of all the goals that they have scored this season. So let's extrapolate that and imagine it stays somewhat similar throughout the entire season.
Wow.
Since Cristiano Ronaldo's arrival in the 2009 season, the best campaign in terms of goal involvements was Cristiano's in the 2014-15 season. More than half of his goals more than half of Real Madrid's goals, came at the feet of Cristiano Ronaldo. Funny enough, it wasn't good enough for a Ballon d'Or. Messi won Ballon d'Or that season, but later it would come for Ronaldo in this 2015-16 season. So I would imagine that 66.7% of goal involvements from the team being Mbappe's is going to drop just a little bit, but not that much if you want to consider his incredible season. And you look at these guys, I'm so curious to see what's going to happen, because the theme of this campaign for Real Madrid is whether Kylian Mbappé and Vinicius Jr. are compatible.
I mean, we know it's the conversation, but I'm always going to follow what the manager says. This is the Kylian Mbappé team, and we're going to build around him. And you can see why. And if Vini doesn't fall into line, he will quickly understand why Xabi Alonso is an unforgiving manager. But the stats do not lie, though, Nico. When Vini starts and when he doesn't start, I mean, I think they speak for themselves in terms of the points per game, especially the goal involvements as well. Real Madrid seems to be flourishing, even though Vini seems to be absent at times.
So in the Mbappé era, you would imagine when Vini doesn't start, Kylian Mbappé more often than not is on the field. And it's crazy to see how a lot of these numbers are more positive as to when Vini is there. There are even more numbers that prove the case when Vini doesn't start, that the team plays better, or at least produces more, as opposed to when he does start. The big chances created per game, 3.26 is not bad. They're creating 5 big chances per game when Vini doesn't start. They're arriving in the box a lot more, and then there's more penalty areas, and obviously the Sofascore rating, if you will, goes up a little bit for Real Madrid. So there is an argument when you look at the numbers that Real Madrid are better when Vini doesn't start in the Mbappé era.
But what's always been the question mark with the Galacticos is managing those egos, right? So Vini is one person, but another person in that change room has got to be Rodrygo.
Yeah.
So how do you manage Rodrygo against the Mbappé era? What does his stats look like when he starts and when he doesn't start? I mean, in fairness, this is a fair and equal sample size. So the first time we have probably the same amount of games in terms of a starting appearance. The goals in terms of the wins and the points per game, they speak for themselves. But I want to highlight down here. This right here tells me a lot of what Rodrygo does, especially when he starts. I mean, 1.97 isn't too bad, but at the same time, averaging 2.3, now we're talking about someone who's really impacting the game and understands his role in this Kylian Mbappé era.
It goes up a little bit. The difference between Rodrygo and Vinicius is that Rodrygo understands he's a role player, either on the left wing where he wants to play now, or be it on the right wing the season before in the Mbappé era. He's not going to be the focal point of the team, and he knows that. Even if you look at more statistical categories, the numbers don't drastically change, unlike when Vinicius is on the field, right? When Rodrygo doesn't start, you would assume that Vini and Mbappé are playing together. So when Rodrygo does start, perhaps it's a 3, perhaps it's not. Obviously, with Jude Bellingham in the mix, I don't think the 3 of them started that much often as they did previous to the.
Don't open that kind of worms. We haven't got enough time in this segment.
But as you can tell, when Rodrygo starts, the standard doesn't drop that much because he understands that the focal point is somebody else.
Okay, so if the focal point is somebody else, do you feel like even though we're under this Kylian Mbappé era, is there still a world where you see Vini, Rodrygo, and Mbappé fitting together? Yes or no?
No. I think somebody needs to sacrifice, and the numbers will tell you that. I want to take a look at Vini and Mbappé together to truly understand if they are compatible. So these are Kylian Mbappe's numbers when he starts with Vini's. I'm not looking at Vini's numbers when he starts with Kylian Mbappé, because we understand that now this is Kylian Mbappe's team. So when he starts with Vini, obviously he's played much more matches, but when he's up by himself starting, I'm looking at this bottom category, the minutes per goal or assist. He's much more effective. He's finding the back of the net, either scoring himself or setting up a goal much more often than when he's not with Vini. And I feel like for Vini, there needs to be some sacrifice on his end so that number drops down and they're more effective sooner together on the field.
So my final point on it, I'm going to speak for those that will just speak with the eye test. Forget these stats. It's all to do with positioning, naturally, because when they heat map, you can see with Vini when he has to share the responsibility, you know he's always wanted to be an inside forward in Kylian Mbappé. So this is naturally where he's going to be hot, where he's going to get a lot of dominance in terms of ball possession, and where he's going to be able to progressively carry the ball. When you look at it on the other side though, Nico, in all of the other matches where Kylian Mbappé can shine by himself, are you surprised that it's the same sort of spaces and the same sort of areas?
No, not at all. He's dominant on the left-hand side, naturally where Kylian Mbappé wants to be. And when he has to play with Vini, he needs to find other spaces, either a little bit behind, inside of the box, or on the right-hand side of the field so they don't overlap. So beyond the numbers, I think there's a functionality conundrum. They can't play both on the same wing.
Nico, I've made a mistake in this segment. You know what? I have to really own up to it. I said, of course, naturally, Kylian Mbappé at the top of this is the most complete forward in world football. I know someone that has an argument to say, though.
Really?
The man down in Manchester, a guy called Erling Haaland, has started the season just as much as on fire as anybody else. And we discussed, of course, his performance on the weekend as we dive into that big 6-pointer between Arsenal and Man City. Come on, people, you know what time it is. Welcome back to Numbers Don't Lie. And our WTF Stat of the Week, Premier League edition. You know we've got to keep it focused around here. And Nico, I know you're already taking us through La Liga.
Okay.
So I'm going to show the people at home exactly what they've been missing down in the Premier League. And a surprise stat this week involves none other than Pep Guardiola, because when you dive into this, oh my gosh, look how low the possession is. This is the amount of matches that Pep has faced in terms of where he's had less than 50% possession. 26 out of over 500. Yeah, that's a player that you know and a manager that has dominated possession. This is his record in those games. It isn't too bad when you look at it, but when you dive a little bit deeper into those stats, it starts raising a couple of eyebrows as to whether or not Pep Guardiola is as dominant as he once was, because that game yesterday was the lowest percentage that Pep has ever had in terms of possession in his tenure as Manchester City manager. Wow. Congratulations to Arsenal. Congratulations to Pep for still leaving with a point. But I want to dive into these numbers, Nico, because look at the accurate passes, look at the possession, look at the fact that Arsenal's featured twice on here in the last 2 years. Does it raise an eyebrow to you what you're seeing with Pep Guardiola's team?
Well, absolutely. I never thought that Arteta could make Pep City look like Prime Stoke. Parking the bus, just clearing that ball. Honestly, I was floored to see how City almost, I would say, miraculously walked away from the Emirates with points, or with 1 point, really, because Arsenal were just that much better than Manchester City.
I mean, when you dive into these stats, though, look at it. Look at it on Sunday. When you really look at the detail, we heard Mikel Arteta talk about, oh, we should be proud. We should be happy with our performance. We've dominated them. Touches in the box. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Manchester City you're talking about here. 7 chances, 7 touches in the box, only 2 big chances. The XG speaks for itself. I mean, thank God they have Erling Haaland up front, because we were talking about a clinical edge and them actually leaving with a point. But this doesn't look like Manchester City whatsoever. And I remind people, Foden was on the pitch, Doku was on the pitch, Haaland was on the pitch, Bernardo Silva was on the pitch. Everybody is there. What's happening, Nico?
And it's crazy to think that 70 minutes in, he took Haaland off and said, you know what? Close up shop. I'm okay with this 1-0, and let's pray for the rest of the game. And obviously didn't end up working, but it's crazy to think the more you dive into it, that Arsenal didn't win this game.
Oh my God. Nico, it's a simple equation. What happens after, when you're the sensei, you pass on all the student, every bit of knowledge that you want, and then eventually the student is due to become the master. And is that what we're seeing when we see Pep versus Arteta? When you see it out loud, you start recognizing how much the momentum is switched in this battle between the two. Because the first 10, it was pretty much a clean slate. I mean, typical domination that Pep has had over a lot of managers during his tenure. 90% win rate, everything else you want there, the points per game. But then when we start flipping over here and we start having a look at since 23-24 season, okay, Mikel Arteta remaining undefeated, 4 draws in that period of time, but no.
Pretty impressive.
When you're up against a Pep Guardiola team, when you can say you played them 6 times and you haven't lost in those 6, that tells me everything you need to know. But when you dive a little bit deeper, Nico, in terms of the shots per game, the big chances per game as well created, the penalty entries, you start recognizing that Arsenal have understood in terms of who Manchester City are and how to play it against them. How do City now adjust when you look at these stats?
So I'm thinking almost from an Arteta perspective, because they've been able to be so dominant in the last 2 seasons plus the one that's just started, right? And understand how to get under this Manchester City team, pin them back, and be able to be the dominant team. That I go back to that record of 0 wins, 4 draws, and then 2 losses, right, for Pep's team. I feel like those losses for Manchester City maybe should have been even more. They should have been more Arsenal wins when you consider it, because you look at these stats, how much like night and day difference, right? Like Arsenal should be even getting more out of this, and it's the effectiveness at the end of the day. You could see how much has dropped off. Maybe average possession hasn't changed that much, but the amount of goals that they've conceded per game has significantly increased. Their accurate passes per game for Manchester City have dropped off a bit. So Arteta is understanding how to play against Manchester City.
He definitely is. When we look at the goals conceded, especially the average possession, there seems to be a momentum switch in this rivalry, but it's supposed to happen, right? You think about the sensei. When you're the sensei, you pass on all the knowledge, and you hopefully one day that the student can surpass you. I don't know if he anticipated Arteta being this quick, though, in terms of closing the gap between the two teams, and of course now the battle that's between them. As the stats continue to build on, you will continue to see that this is a common theme, though. Manchester City and Arsenal have been logging heads for a little while. Give me your biggest takeaway of what you saw in Sunday's game.
Yeah, I feel that Arteta should have gone for it more. Maybe from the beginning. Understanding this trend, we are the better team when we play City in the last couple of years. Maybe go for it and perhaps try to understand that you can't be so exposed when there's us one Erling Haaland ready on the break.
I mean, Erling Haaland is someone that enjoys this fixture. We're going to dive into everything that he does into this game because he seems to be enjoying this battle with Gabriel. Him and Gabriel going a bit back and forth, which I like. I enjoy that. It takes me back to the 90s when strikers actually used to enjoy the confrontation. But one thing that I want everybody to take note of, it's the touches down here. 26 touches in the game for a centre forward isn't too bad, but the touches in the box, only 2. He just needs to be clinical, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why we opened up the conversation as to whether or not this is the best forward in world football.
Yeah, funny enough, I would say that Arsenal did limit Haaland. They did their best, like only leaving him to 1 goal to 2 chances. That's good enough because you know that he's going to get goals. Against London clubs, he does well. Against big 6 teams, obviously he can only play 5 of the big 6. He has 22 goals in 30 matches, and it's like, okay, that's worse than the rest of the London clubs, but where does that actually rank since Haaland has played in the Premier League? And it actually ranks first, even more than Salah. And then the one thing that I think is pretty incredible is that Haaland and Salah can only play against 5 of the big 6 because they themselves play for one of the big 6, and Isak and Gordon have less goals against those 6 teams. So it just comes to show you that, sure, it's more difficult against the big 6, but he still delivers.
Well, I want to pivot the conversation because Erling Haaland speaks for himself in terms of just as one of the best forwards and most complete players in world football, right? But on the other side of the conversation is, this guy's a winner. And Arsenal are trying to put themselves into that conversation. You already know that Mikel Arteta is at the forefront of it. The pressure is there, the expectations is there, the investment is there. So now we start opening up the conversation of what happens in North London right now. So Mikel Arteta, how does he break away from this game? Because he was open in saying that he felt that his team was the better team. We dominated in terms of this game. But this is his record against the big 6 so far, Nico. Do you feel like it ranks fair?
I do, because I do think he has a good record against the big 6. But the question is, him going for the games, being audacious, being bold, and the one stat that kind of calls my attention is this big chances per game. He ranks 10th. In the points, it's up there. In the goals, it's up there. In the goals conceded, it's up there, right? But in the big chances per game, he's not creating that much. And let's look at the 10 teams or the 9 teams that create more than him, right? City, Liverpool, the 2 teams that have won it during his time. Even Brentford, even a team like Bournemouth, Brighton they're more audacious. They're creating more against the big 6 than Mikel Arteta. And that's like the one thing, the one knock in these types of games that you could say to the Arsenal that maybe they have to get more out of.
There's only one stat that's really making me shake my head. You can sit 10th, and that's okay. But this, them being above you with the turmoil and the structure that they're going through, that tells me there needs to be a tactical change. And you saw the question marks as soon as the 11 was announced yesterday. I'm sorry, is that midfield got Zubimendi, Rice, and Moreno in it?
Yeah.
I mean, look, let's see how the numbers weigh up first of all, when you see those 3 in terms of all playing together, especially Rice and Mikel Moreno, because those are the 2 that they're looking to turn around and create something, especially in the absence of Martin Odegaard.
Pause.
Right? Tell me the context.
Okay.
Deeper than the numbers.
There's a caveat here. I understand you see Rice and Merino and you say, all right, it's a very defensive team. Mikel Merino played the 9 in the majority of those 24 matches. Okay? All right, so it's not like they were in the midfield together. But even if he wasn't playing the 9 and it's either one of them or the other starting, the numbers speak for themselves. Arsenal are more offensive, they're more progressive, they create a little bit more danger than when both of them are on the field together.
I mean, you can understand it though, right? Because the profiles of both of these two players, they're very similar. So it doesn't surprise me when you see to yourself, I mean, your goals conceded. Arsenal have already spoken about being one of the best defences within Europe. The shots allowed and everything else, the average Sofascore, all speaks for themselves. But I think there's something missing in this midfield. Do you not think so? There's something missing, especially when you have, and you see the impact that Aberete Eze can do almost instantly.
Especially when you don't have like an Odegaard, right? You put an Eze in the midfield to have that creativity, and you could tell that the numbers changed first half to second half. When they were in need, they went after it, and it was a different Arsenal.
Different Arsenal. You know what else is different? Probably the flavour down in Manchester right now. We can smile because Manchester United were able to get the 3 points this weekend, but we can also dive in to some of those names that have left Old Trafford this summer, and more importantly, the redemption tour they're on. We'll see you in a few. Come on, people, you know what time it is. Welcome back to Numbers Don't Lie. And I know, heavy that wears the crown. There's no crown that's heavier than the one at Old Trafford when you're a Manchester United player. And these three understand the responsibility of having that crown on their head. But this isn't about knocking them or looking at their past. No, this is about a redemption tour for each one of these players as they're on a new journey. Nico, I love the fact that these three have now got a smile on their face. One can call himself an MVP, one's enjoying the sun down in Barcelona, and of course, he's going to get used to the beautiful scenes in Sevilla. But it's interesting to look at their numbers pre-Manchester United and, of course, now post-Manchester United. Let's dive into Marcus Rashford first.
And I think the three of these are on a different level, right, of redemption arc, if you will. The numbers for Marcus Rashford from that 2023 season up until he went on loan to Aston Villa in February 2025 actually show that it's not that much different, except that there are goals or assists coming at a higher rate than there was before. Obviously, I don't think that's his fault. It obviously has to do with Manchester United being so poor in that stretch. But if we look at advanced stats, yes, he's hitting more key passes per game. He's attempting the same amount of dribbles, but actually succeeding a little bit less. So I don't know if I'm too convinced that Marcus Rashford has ultimately been better at his time at Villa and Barcelona. Has he grown? I do think so. But this is my theory, if you will. Entertain me.
Of course.
I think here at Villa and now Barcelona, he has better teammates and better teams overall than he did at Manchester United.
I think that's a fair analysis, and I think you can also see that in terms of the reflection of his heat map, because where you see the areas that he's actually impacting the game and where Marcus Rashford wants to be impacting the game. It doesn't take a genius to tell you that Marcus Rashford does not want to be in this area of the pitch when his team is attacking this way. This tells me if your heat is in this section, you're doing way too much work facing your own goal. This is where he wants to be, ladies and gentlemen. In the final third, attacking, creating chances, and more importantly, adding a dynamic in that final third that only special players can do. Since February 2025, just like Aston Villa and Barcelona, that's what we've seen. And hence why it's so concentrated in those areas.
Yeah, definitely. I also think from February 2025 to now, he wasn't a lockdown starter on either of his teams. At Villa, he still needed to fight for his place. And at Barcelona, of course he needs to fight for his place. He's not an automatic on the team sheet. Whereas at Manchester United, you can expect him to be on 11, right? In the 11 a lot. But I think Marcus Rashford is a growing case. There are other guys, especially like Scott McTominay, that has really found a new home and transformed as a player.
No, Nico, no. We got to introduce him properly.
Okay.
This is the MVP. This is the MVP. This is the guy that has turned around and said, I can reinvent myself once leaving Manchester United. I can showcase who I am. Not only can I win a Scudetto for my team, but I can showcase I am the best player in Serie A. Now, if you look at the stats, this is where we're going to have a conflict, right? Because naturally, the stats actually haven't been that much different. But when you look a little bit deeper, Nico, what did you tell me?
Okay.
This is over one season.
This is just one campaign. Over there is a 2022-23 plus 23-24. And you can understand the importance that Scott McTominay has put on his shoulder, carried with him, and delivered.
I think more importantly, when you look into the the advanced stats, it's not just what he's doing on the ball, but what he's doing off the ball as well. The ball recoveries speak for themselves. The duels in which someone 6'3", 6'4", as strong as he is, he should want to get involved in those contests. But look at the pass accuracy. Everything seems to be in terms of balancing itself out. And now we're understanding the Scott McTominay that was loved by all of those through us manning Manchester United academy days, and now, of course, into the first team. But seems to just find himself a cool little home in Italy, man. I love it.
Yeah, definitely. And let's compare his heat map from his time at Manchester United to what he was doing at Napoli, because at Manchester United, he was all over the place. It's almost like there wasn't a role for him. At one point, remember, he was Manchester United's top goal scorer. And that's almost like unacceptable for a team like Manchester United, where you have to have the best players in every position. He had to be inside of the box defensively. He had to be scoring on the other side of the field. Whereas at Napoli, even if there were formation changes, he had a role in that midfield three last season with Lobotka, with Anguissa. He found himself in this area, impacting the game, either with a winger or with a front two, be it a back three, be it that 4-3-3 that they like to play. Scott McTominay had a role, and he was so good in that one role.
I tell you what I love, what this heat map shows me more than anything. It shows me the good management. This right here is a manager that's trying to get the best out of a player and doesn't quite know where to fit him. This right here tells me a manager in Antonio Conte who very much knows how to get the best out of Scott McTominay. And talking about trying to get the best out of players, we know there's one more person that we need to add to this list. I mean, no, it's not Andre Onana. No, it's not a lot of these other players that have left Manchester United and on their own redemption tours. No, it's the Brazilian, the Samba, the man that came with a huge reputation as from Erik ten Hag as this is my player, and had the celebration and the spinneroonie to match, because Antony now finds himself down in Sevilla, of course representing Betis. And what are you expecting to see from him now? This is a permanent move.
Yeah, listen, he hasn't played that much this season particularly, only 2 games so far, but since January 2025, his importance at Betis changed. Again, it's a different league, it's an easier league. They got to a continental final, mind you, in the Conference League. Again, Conference League is not the same thing as a Champions League. It's maybe not even the same thing as the Europa League, but he was impacting the game, right? You still got to go out and do it. He could have flopped at Betis and been that same Antony from Manchester United. He's scoring free kicks, he's assisting, he's scoring goals, and the fans are falling in love with him, really, because he's contagious in that way.
I love that, and I really want to dive in. I know we're going to talk about the stats, but Nico, it was the moment when the tears trickled down his eyes. I thought, wow, there's a man that's on a redemption tour. There's a man that's taken the weight of Manchester off his shoulders and accepting the son of Sevilla right there and then, because it just, you can see the difference in the touches per game, the penalty entries. Everything is up tenfold because all of a sudden there's an element of freedom with Antony. That is the same Antony that Erik ten Hag fell in love with. That was the same Antony that Manchester United fans thought they were about to inherit.
Right.
But the heat map will tell us everything we need to know, Neeks.
Yeah, a Brazilian needs to be happy. And I think those tears were a symbol of him feeling that freedom. I finally can be myself. And the heat maps are similar because Antony is the same player, just that emotionally now he has a different responsibility. He has a team that understands him, a city that loves him, and just a refreshed air, if you will. And sometimes, beyond the stats, that's all you need. Psychologically, it's a different player.
Come on, man. You know what time it is. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. You know what time it is. Numbers don't lie. Nico Cantor JayDee Dyer. We'll see you in the next one.